welcome to another episode of Living Room Wisdom, where your story is your glory. I am Patrina Wisdom, author, speaker, and creator of the Pure Abundance Retreat in Belize. And today I have the honor of interviewing this beautiful, powerful woman. This is Dr. Nicole Garner-Scott, and she is a wealth advisor, which is very interesting because we talked about this when we met, that there's not a lot of women, specifically women of color, in our space, and there's definitely an uprising of women and women of color, just diverse groups in the financial services industry. And I want to say that you're kind of leading the way for that. You're opening doors, you're stepping into rooms that, you know, in the past we may not have been able to be in. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to be here. And before we talk about what you do, I really like to talk about who you are. So if you could share with our audience just a little bit about who is Nicole.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Patrina, for having me on. Our energies have connected. I don't think you meet people by accident. I think it's divine intervention that we cross paths, and we have so many things similar. So I think a lot of that will come out in our conversation. But just a little about me. I am Dr. Nicole Garner-Scott, born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia. It's not many people in Atlanta that was actually born there, so I was like a unicorn.
Special.
I am married. We live in Florida, and I have a 3.5-year-old son. The half is really big for him right now. So that's a little about me personally. Just me on a deeper level, no titles attached. I'm just very purpose driven as far as my intentionality with my time on this earth. And so everything that I do, I feel like it's a deeper relationship with me being intentional with what I'm doing with my time and how I'm serving. And so that's kind of what led me to the world, even of finance. I just felt like it was deeper than the surface that many people, when people think of money, they think it's such a surface oriented thing, but it's very deeply rooted into mindset, into lifestyle, into behavior. And I thank God that I have the ability to be empathetic and to be able to tap into a lot of that energy space. So that's me.
I love that. And I really love what you say about just divine connections, divine timing, because Dr. Garner, I was introduced to Dr. Garner through social media by way of my partner, my life partner. And he's like, man, I just feel like you need to meet this woman. She's badass. Like, you have to follow her. She's also in the financial industry. So I started following you. And then it wasn't until I saw that you were speaking at the Divas Don't Do Drama event, or at least I thought you were speaking. I knew you were going to be there. So I made the decision to go to an event, which is where we connected. And then upon having conversation at brunch, learning about all these connector points, not just the financial business, but also the spirituality piece. Dr. Garner actually teaches yoga, and she's into meditation. So, she had the hippie spirit. So my little girl was like, girlfriend, right? So I love when I meet women that are like me. They're like-minded. We live above and below. We're ethereal and spiritual and all of that, but we're also very practical, logical, and we're helping women in that way. So
it's very rare to meet people who are actively using both sides of the brain at all times. And so when you meet another person who operates in that space, you're like, oh, we're friends immediately because you get me.
No words needed. Right. So there's that immediate recognition. So tell me about, and tell us about, your experience coming up in the financial industry as this beautiful, curvaceous, because the body is banging, let's not let that go unsaid. Walking into a room that is traditionally cis white male, let's just call it what it is, and being in this financial, world that you're in, and not just being in it, but I mean, from what I perceive, you're kind of a boss.
Thank you.
Let's just say it, right? So what's that experience been like for you?
So I would definitely say in my earlier years, it was a lot of observation for me. what is actually transpiring? What are the unsaid moments that are happening? What are the natural biases that are surrounding a lot of the conversations happening? What are the limitations, either self-imposed or systematically imposed? It was a lot of observation. I have the personality to like charge in and we're going to change it and everything. But I in my older years, I do a lot better when I listen first. I really understand what is the non-obvious thing that's happening. And then I feel like change could be made on a deeper level. And so, yeah, just a lot of financial conversations with individuals. It's never, if you ever see two people get into a fight over money, it's never about money.
Right.
And if you see two people argue or family members argue over long-term plans, it's always rooted differently. So even when you come into the financial industry, there are a lot of traumas that advisors have dealt with that they turn and utilize and group thoughts and beliefs of individuals that they might speak to.
Sure.
And so I think a big part of just what I've been trying to bring as far as my initiative is making it human again. I think when you start to generalize, and that's why I love social media. I'm on social media. We were talking about social media. But the thing about social media that everyone has forgotten is how desensitized it has made everyone.
True.
And then also how it tends to group everyone from starting from the same starting line. So when you're getting a lot of information just from YouTube or just from social media, that guru or instructor that you're listening to is giving advice based upon a group of statistics. But that might not be your story. That might not be your starting point. That might not be how you want to end. That might not be what drives you. That might not be your belief system. All these different things that are variables that play into that. And so a big part of my practice is really returning back to that level of customization. And I think you could still do great impact. There was a podcast I was listening to on the way to your podcast. I'm a podcast person, so
okay.
Yes. And they mentioned that in many of the digital businesses and digital world that we're in right now, that there's no sense of intimacy. Like people are being herded around because you can get numbers into the billions, right? What is the Kardashians? Their following on Instagram has eclipsed billions at this point. Yeah. Right. So you're herding around mindsets and individuals in the millions, and so that intimacy has been lost. But when it comes to finances and just financial behavior and financial psychology, you have to get away from the groupthink. And you have to return back to what is the driver for that person. Right.
I love that. I love it. And it sounds like to me, it's almost a form of activism for you.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're not only changing the client's life, but you're changing the other advisors who are witnessing you in a lot of ways, right? Their biases, their perspectives, whatever else that comes up for them. And then also the people who are watching you on social media are also being transformed. So I always, because I'm in the transformational space, I always love it when I see transformation happening in different ways. And so that's amazing. I love that. I love it. And I wanted you to share a little bit about your journey to finance, because we were talking and you were saying that you were loved numbers even when you were a child. So if you could share a little bit of that.
Yeah, so I was always intrigued. I can't say I loved numbers as a child. I was intrigued by the mechanics of currency. What moves people? What is value exchange? And definitely as a child, I started to realize there was many different levels to finances. And I recognized that it was an entirely different language that I was not given a lot of access to growing up. So in my household, we could only but talk about so much, right? We didn't necessarily have like a family office and, you know, estate planning attorneys surrounding us and all these different things. I was exposed to a lot of that in college through roommates and through individuals who just came from different backgrounds. That would be my argument for college when people are like, you know, I don't believe in college anymore, etc. And I'll say, as long as you can put yourself in an environment where you have to spend a lot of time intimately with people who don't have the same background as you. Yeah. And so I was exposed to a lot, and I was very much aware of that I didn't know what I didn't know.
Right.
And that is what started me. And I have a very type A. I don't know if you're type A. Are you type A?
I'm recovered type
Okay.
A.
I still need to get into recovery. But I can be very tunnel vision, and that started my journey of becoming very tunnel vision with that, just really gaining more access, more knowledge, and then very passionate about, one, bringing that back to my own family, and then sharing it with those I knew who just didn't get a lot of that information.
Yeah, and then coming from you, it probably felt a lot less threatening than if it was to come through someone else. I love that. Yes, using her powers for good in the world. So tell me, we've talked a little bit about this success because, you know, you're killing it, and I just see you doing so much, and I actually see so much even for your future.
Thank you.
And I will ask you this question, where you see yourself in about 5 years, but part of your, I think, magic too, speaking of social media, is that you do have the PR background. And so not often do you see like wealth advisors that are also very interesting to like watch and follow, and you're engaging, and it just makes you, it breaks down the barrier to finance. And I love that about you and your brand.
Thank you.
So I will ask you first, where do you see yourself 5 years, 10 years from now? What's the big vision?
So the big vision, I feel like there's this forgotten about segment of individuals in their planning journey that are first generational. The first ones to reach 6, 7, and 8 figures, which used to seem impossible decades ago. And now through the power of digital products and everything else, you're seeing 7 and 8 figure earners a lot more consistently. But the thing of the nature is, who do they get their advice from?
Right.
If you're the first to achieve that, if you're one of few in your family, if you're one of few in your peer circle, who do you have to talk to? And so, and you have different weights on you. You know, like you might reach that level and you still have to help take care of family members. Right. You might reach that level and you still have some very deeply rooted financial trauma or financial PTSD from how you grew up and what that narrative was in your childhood. It's just different scenarios. So really helping with that segment that's very much forgotten about, really helping to empower women. I know we share in that energy. You know, it's very interesting to me. I have a great aunt that her and my great uncle did very well throughout their life, and when he passed, she didn't even know what bank they were at. You know, and when I say that now, I feel like younger generations are like, oh my gosh, that would never be me, but it still kind of is in some ways when you don't lean into the conversation, when you don't lean into the numbers, when you're like, I don't want to be bothered with it, I'm not the numbers person, but you just don't know what the future holds. So continuing to empower women in that, to just really lean in. I love, even just with the two of us, I'm just very passionate that when women gather, that we should normalize talking about these things.
Yes, it's true.
You know, it's years ago, I don't even think people realize it wasn't even that long ago that women couldn't have bank accounts.
Right. It was the 60s, right?
Yeah.
67, I think.
Women couldn't get houses on their own. Women couldn't do a lot of things. And now that we can, I feel like there needs to be a stronger charge of of how we can continue to normalize this type of conversation.
Yeah, it's literally a privilege.
Yeah.
And it's a privilege and a right that we take for granted at this point. So we've learned, we're really excited and have a lot of pride and excitement around going and be able to make the money.
Yeah.
But now what are we going to do with that money? How are we going to have that money making money and create generational
How are you going to
wealth?
sustain it? Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, great. We did the business stuff, right? We took care of business. Now let's get into the juicy stuff. Personal, finance, right? Not finance, I'm sorry, personal and family is what I was trying to say. Because honestly, if I am seeing this properly, that really is probably what drives you.
Very much
right?
so.
You have your husband, you have this new, very young child actually, and I would love to hear about that journey because I was shocked when you told me the age of your child. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I was a late bloomer. So anyone who's on a later journey, feel empowered because you will make it happen. But I mean, family is very much a big part of my drive, and I carry a lot of pride in last name, and how will I add to my family's last name? How will I continue to prepare for generations ahead of me? The children I'll never meet, down the line, how will I impact them? It was funny, I heard a sermon the other day where this minister, it was floating around on social media, so it might be very common, but this minister was like, you'd be surprised how generations will remember the grandfather's name when he left something for them.
Right.
It's like, oh yes, grandfather such and such Smith, he was excellent, we love him.
Yes.
But if grandfather didn't leave anything, it's like, I really don't know much about my grandfather. Right? And so I want to know that generations down, they'll still be like, you know what, grandmother Nicole was awesome. Look at what she did for us.
I love it.
Yeah.
It is important. And I think what's also important is that the financial education to know what to do with it.
Yeah.
Because I think it was, and I'm really bad with my facts sometimes, but I believe it was Master P who inherited money from an insurance policy and invested that into his business, right?
I believe so, yeah.
I believe that was Master P. I think that was one of the first that I heard of that did that. And that's super intelligent, right? That was super smart. He used that money and invested it. And that's doing his ancestors a service.
Right.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So when it comes to hubby, balancing hubby, baby, and world domination in the wealth space, what does that look like for you and how do you take care of yourself?
Yes. So when they say who you marry is one of the most important decisions you'll make, I truly believe that because we have switched roles since we've been married. We're going on our 9th year, so we have our 9th anniversary coming up. And at different points in our marriage, I've been the busy one, he's been the busy one. I've been the progressive one, he's been the progressive one. We've both, it's like we're passing the baton.
Ebb and flow.
Yeah, back and forth with each other, and we both create space for each other. We both support each other like to the core. I never ever doubt his level of support. And then we both give breathing room to the person expanding individually. There was, I feel like before we got married, and you know how people give unsolicited advice. But there was one person that told us the only thing you can count on is your spouse is never going to be the same year after year.
Sure.
And you have to know that you're marrying that. You're not going to celebrate 10 and 20 and 50 and 60 year anniversaries with the same exact person that you cross that you walk down the aisle with. And I think we both took that and we were like, we're excited to take this chance.
Yes.
We're going to bet on this chance. But we do put a lot of intention in making sure we stay aligned.
Yeah.
And that we pulse check in with each other. And, you know, at the bottom of it all, our cores are very much the same. So even as we're both evolving and growing and maturing, it's not like one day I'm going to wake up and you know, he's going to be doing something where I'm like, oh my gosh, I would never be with a person like that, you know.
Right, you're growing together.
Yeah,
along
growing
the same
together.
path.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're like myself, which I have a hunch you are, you probably have systems in place, right?
Yeah, very much so.
Are you very scheduled? Like, what does that look like?
Extremely. I think in the financial space, I do a lot of, I engage with a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And so, one, I have to monitor my energy with that, right? And so, I even schedule, like, just getting some vitamin D, getting some sunshine time, being able to do what I need to do so I can hold space for people. Because money talks are always personal.
Right.
And then also, too, I want to make sure that I can let go of any energy so that when I'm with my son, I'm giving him the best of me.
Yes.
But then also, too, I believe that children should see your full range of emotions.
Yes, true.
So I grew up in a household where your parents don't argue in front of you and they always seem happy and all those different things. So when I had moments of not feeling that way, I didn't know what to do with those emotions. So I am very big on, if I do have a really rough day, I let him see that and I let him see me work through that. Sometimes too, that takes a lot of pressure off of having to feel like you have to be a perfect
all the time. Wow. Yeah, it's so interesting that you say that because my daughter brought that to my attention. My daughter is my eldest of 4 birth children, and then I have a beautiful bonus baby as well. And she is the one who really pointed out to me that when me and my late husband were together, that everything was prettied up. Like they never, I mean, we didn't really argue. We had disagreements, but they never saw us argue. Like everything was just so happy and rainbows and butterflies all the time that she didn't learn how to deal with adversity.
Correct.
And she didn't know what to do with her emotions. And oh my goodness, my heart broke when I saw that.
Yeah.
Or when I heard that. Because I thought, you know, here I am trying to be this like ideal mom, you know? And it wasn't until after my husband passed and then I had to start recreating my life that I was like, you know what? This is the hardest shit I'm probably ever going to go through in my entire life. And I'm going to give myself permission to like the full range of emotion.
Yeah.
And I became human to
and
my children.
I just feel like that is, that's such a beautiful space to be in. There are, as you can imagine, because we share in dealing with people and money, it's not easy. No. It's just not easy. It is not a career that you attach to if you're wanting the easy route in life.
I can attest to that.
Right. It is way easier things to commit to. So it becomes a calling for you. And when it's a calling, you're going to have a range of emotions because you're doing life work. And when you're doing life work, it is beyond reproach to feel like you're going to be at this level of happiness and pure joy all the time because you're feeling. And when you're feeling, you're going to feel people's high levels, you're going to feel their low levels. And I think that's healthy. And so I definitely feel like the reason that I can handle a lot of this is because I don't hold myself to a standard of perfection. I'm very open and honest with my family. Even as we go through seasons, like me and my husband will check in and I'll say, hey, this is not an A+ season for me right now. I might be clocking in around a B or a C. And I want to put this out there and we understand what that looks like. And then so he'll step up in that area. Then I'll have an A+ season and he'll be like, you know, right now I'm at a C level.
Yeah.
And I'll step up in that area, and that has been life-changing
That's
for
partnership,
us.
Baby.
Yeah, that has been
That's
very
partnership.
life-changing
I love
for
it.
us. And I think overall too, just some things in my household, I can't speak to everyone else's household, is we prioritize sleep. And it's really funny because my son, he's always saying he needs to go relax. I'll be like, man, relax.
That cracks me up.
So it's funny because he'll be around his grandparents and
When kids are stressed or tired, you're like,
he'll be like, I need to go relax.
Yeah.
And like his grandmother will be like, relax, you know. But I'm like, yes, he needs to go relax. But we prioritize sleep, and so you know, if your energy seems a little off, then I'm like, hey, go take time. Like, do you need to just go outside? Do you need to go ride around and listen to your music? Do you need to sleep in today? Whatever that is, you just be surprised how your home is supposed to be your sanctuary, whether you have other people in it or not. Right. And how you let so many outside factors guide you with their level of expectation. And so I think, for my son, I grew up in a household, Saturday mornings, you're up, you're cleaning, you're such and such, get out of bed, harsh. And sometimes he jumps up on his own. Right. He's 3.5, so he's still an alarm clock himself. Right. But if he does need to sleep in a little while, then I create space for that too.
Got it. And that makes sense. And I'm a person who needs very little sleep, so I'm the annoying one in the house.
Vacuum cleaner is on.
I'm like, no vacuum cleaner.
Oh, okay.
That's not.
Okay.
I'm up. I'm want to go down to my meditation space.
Got it.
And like I'm
the energy
I'm
is
up
pouring.
and I'm energized. And I'm like ready to rock and happy. So that's super annoying to people who need their sleep.
I'm amazed at morning people. I have really worked hard to become more of a morning person. Yeah. My brain comes alive at 2 a.m. Like the creative ideas. Yes. But I operate in worlds that everyone's up at 6. Yeah. So, I have tried to like reset my circadian rhythm and, all these different things. And I make it through, but in an ideal world, I would have financial meetings at 2 p.m.
Well, you just work more internationally.
Right. Yes, exactly. They'd be like, wow, you're bright and chirpy.
Exactly. So what has been your biggest challenge? Life, career, whatever. What's been your biggest challenge? I mean, this is living room wisdom. So I love to talk about the challenges, the traumas that we've had, how we've overcome them, and how we're utilizing those to help other people. So
giving myself grace. So there's just a lot that as you continue to journey through life, you just aren't going to be prepared for. And that's my type A side. I try to overly prepare, right? So even coming to your podcast, I Googled everything, such and such, and let me time myself. How long will it take to get here? And I mean, just
preparation.
Yeah. And so you just can't control the uncontrollables.
True.
And I had to make myself okay with that very early in life. Even if you would have met me at like 18, I had my whole life planned out. This is when I'm going to get married. This is when I'm having children. This is where I'm going. This is what's happening. And I got to around 25 and I was like, oh, none of that happened. Like nothing. Right. I am on a completely different journey. But I'm still happy. So what does that tell me? And then I was like, I'm just not going to be that person anymore that is, I mean, the world is harsh enough that I don't have to add to it myself. Yes. So giving myself grace, stepping outside of shame. And, I talk with a lot of my clients about that it's usually worse in your head than it ever is, once you say it out loud. And shame is just a part of, I think it's a self-inflicted piece that will hold you stagnant way too long. So getting out of shame, and then I would definitely, just consistently doing the inner work. And the inner work is messy and it could be nasty, and it's not the prettier side. It is a lot prettier just to ignore it all, have your margarita and pretend like a lot of this doesn't exist.
It's them. It's them. It's not me.
And when I really started doing a lot of inner work, like, why do I think this way? Why are my thoughts telling me this? Why am I believing these thoughts? Where do these thoughts originate from? How am I putting my thoughts and beliefs on other people? Or how am I digesting what they're saying in such a toxic manner? Just a lot of those different things I had to really dig deep into. I'm in this excellent mothers Facebook group, and it talks about like gentle parenting, and it challenges a lot of the thoughts of how you raise your children. And there was something, I definitely believe in like having a free thinking child, But there were small little things that I was doing that I didn't even realize. I never questioned it, right? Like, I never questioned, from the South, yes ma'am, no ma'am. Yes ma'am, no ma'am. Yes sir, no sir. You should do this, you should do that. And every day she's asking us why. And I'm like, you know what? I don't know. I actually really don't know. Like, why? I mean, that was how I grew up, but what did that do for me? You know, and it was really, I think having a child was really eye-opening, because that is the biggest mirror of your own behavior. And I even say everyone's child doesn't have to be by blood. Just being around someone that absorbs your energy and regurgitates it back to you is a very eye-opening experience. And daily, I'm really having to go through it and be like, where did I get that belief from? And let me question it.
Exactly. Parenthood and entrepreneurship. They are both spiritual journeys.
They will open you all the way up.
100%. Awesome. So as we wrap up this episode, I always like to have my guests look into the camera, talk directly to the audience. And what I'd love for you to share, because it seems like you are really on your path with family, with business, with the wealth path, the wealth journey that you're on as well. I would love for you to just share like maybe 3 tips, success tips, that they can start to move forward and create what I like to call their badass bodacious life.
So I would say tip number 1, what gets measured gets managed. So when you are a person that has a lot going on in life, you tend to skip over the measuring of it all, you know, and that is a big part of what keeps me on track. It's like, let me measure if this is working. Let me measure if my family is being responsive to this. Let me measure, you know, how this is working. We're doing this program called the 12-week year. Oh, yes. And it's keeping us very, because really you can get to the end of the year and be like, Lord, what happened? Yes. it's December. I'm about to make, and that's why so many people don't believe in New Year's resolutions, because there's no tracking system. I love New Year's resolutions, and you can call them manifestations, you can call them whatever resonates with you and how you choose to approach it. But you have to have that check-in piece to be able to manage it, or the whole year will go by. I would say second off is just repeating, knowing that your thoughts are not always facts. And when you're putting yourself out there as an entrepreneur, small business owner, a 9-to-5er that still has other streams of income, all of these things, and motherhood, rich auntie, whatever those things are, you're exposing yourself to the world. And so when you're exposing yourself, when you're operating in a space where you have to bet on yourself, there's a lot of messages that are coming back to you telling you aren't enough, you aren't equipped, you aren't ready. And the thing is, it's subliminal, so you start to believe that those originated within yourself. So you have to be able to detach yourself from that. And then the last one I would say is marrying your future self with your present self. And I think a lot of us operate in life as if those are 2 different people. If Patrina now and Patrina in 40 years is 2 completely different people. Right. And if you start to look at the walk of life, the journey of life is, I need to take care of Patrina now, I need to take care of Patrina in the future. I need to take care of Nicole now and the future version of Nicole. I think it brings a more holistic approach to everything. I think we're in a space where we spend everything now, do everything now as if tomorrow won't exist. And if you think about tomorrow a little bit more as a part of your whole journey, I think it just makes you more conscious in your day-to-day.
That was good. I hope y'all wrote that down, because those were some powerful steps. And I've never heard it put in that way, right? right? So the way that you delivered it was fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I'm so happy that we got to spend this time together, and I'll be here in Miami till Thursday, so
Yes.
hopefully we'll get to play together some more. I want to thank you all for joining us on this episode of Living Room Wisdom, where your story is your glory. And I want to encourage you to subscribe, to support our podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Anchor, whatever your favorite podcast platform is. All right. Remember that I love you. Namaste, and we will see you next week.